in Zimbabwe. These hills are really not remarkable in themselves. These hills are said to be the one place in Africa where the Chitauri have been seen. And these hills is where Cecil John Rhodes lies buried, but there is more. You must visit this place at one time. Amongst the rocks on the Matopo Mountains, you find a species of lizard which you don't find anywhere in Africa or the world. A species of lizard which responds to the call of a human being. When I first arrived in 1958 in the land called Rhodesia, now known as Zimbabwe, I found an African there who was a tourist attraction. He was a game warden who made strange sounds calling out, and as he called out, these strange lizards, the only type of lizard anywhere on earth which responds to the human voice, used to come out of cracks and out of holes in the ground and to gather around this African. And it was this African game warden who told me that the sounds he is making are not just noise, they are the speech of the Chitauri star gods.
Isn't it a staggering coincidence that Cecil Rhodes, one of the greatest Illuminati frontmen, perhaps certainly of modern times, who did so much to imprison Africa, should choose to be buried at the point where this is all going on?
You see, sir, Cecil John Rhodes wormed his way into the hearts of Africans, and in their despair, wise men of the Mashona people, wise men of Matebele people, tried to make Cecil John Rhodes one of them. They told him about the secrets of the Matopo Mountains, that under the Matopo Mountains lies a city of great wisdom, which is the home of the last survivors of the Chitauri god beings in that part of Africa. And if you go to the Matopo Mountains and you carry a 4-pound hammer and you strike certain parts of that landscape with that hammer, it gives out a hollow sound which shows you that there are caverns deep underground there. There are two sets of mountains. There is the Matopo Mountains, and then to the east of Zimbabwe there are the great mountains known as the Inyangani, the Weeping Moon Mountains. There, even now, people disappear without trace. Sometimes a person would disappear for several days and reappear a few days later, not knowing where he had been or where she had been. And white people have disappeared there. Black people in their thousands have disappeared there. It was there that I also went missing for 4 days in 1959 in one of the most traumatic experiences of my life.
What happened?
Well, it's a long story, sir. My teacher, Elizabeth Moyo, had sent me to get a special herb which grows only on the foothills of those mountains. It was just an ordinary day like any other, just beautiful day like this one outside here. And I love the African wilderness. I'm at home in the bush, especially in the days when I was still in good health. I love the animals. I love their smell, and I love the smell of the vegetation. And I was looking for this herb when all of a sudden a bright blue mist fell all around me. It took me some time to react to this strange thing. It was a hot day, and all of a sudden the temperature around me dropped. It was as if I was on the slope of a very cold mountain, but it was a warm day. And then the next moment, I was in what appeared to be a metal-lined tunnel, a caving tunnel, and I was lying on what looked like a workbench, a very large workbench of some kind. You know, an iron table which an engineer or somebody working with metal would use for welding and cutting metal upon. But this workbench was very brightly polished. And there I was lying there with my trousers missing and only my khaki shirt, when I saw again through what appeared to be like blue mist a number of moving objects, which at first I thought were dolls. And these objects were moving towards me. I noticed with mild surprise that they were very thin, short, human-like creatures with very, very large melon-shaped heads. The creatures had no noses, as human beings have. They had only small little holes on either side of where the nose would be, and their mouths were like knife cuts at the bottom of their faces. And these creatures were coming towards me. In color, they were gray, like certain types of fish, and they wore silvery gray garments which reached up to their necks and up to their wrists. I couldn't see whether they were wearing boots or not at that time. And while I was looking at these creatures, I suddenly was aware that something was above me, standing there, and I looked up straight into the face of one of them, a much taller one than the others. And this creature was wearing a garment like a tight-fitting overall without any buttons or anything, which reached up to its neck, but its wrists were bare. I noticed that the creatures had very long fingers. Its fingers had extra, and each of its fingers had an extra joint, and it ended in a claw, a black claw like that of a chicken or a certain kind of bird, and that its thumb was not here, but here in the middle of the hand. And this thing was standing above my head and looking down at me, and I was looking at its eyes, which were very strange indeed. It was as if it was wearing plastic goggles over its eyes. I could see its eyes inside these tinted goggles, and it had holes on either side here, but it had no nose as I have. Its jaws were very small, and its mouth was a slit with tiny little scale-like things where its lips should be. And the creature carried a horrible smell on it. I can't describe that smell. It was a metallic, chemically smell